Hey Archery Talk, this is Lucas, and today I've got my long-term review of the Hoyt Carbon RX-5 Ultra. And if you went into this year expecting a minor warming over of Hoyt's hunting bow lineup, you were likely pretty surprised when these bows dropped. They are loaded with new technology, but before we get to that, let's look at the specs. This bow has an axle-to-axle length of 34 inches, a brace height of 7 inches, and an IBO rated speed of 334 feet per second. That number is actually the slowest of any advertised speed of all the hunting bows I tested this year, but the chrono results, which I'll get to in a little bit, tell a different story. So let's look at the changes for this year, and the biggest one is definitely the cam system. Hoyt has switched to a binary cam system this year, calling it the HBX, and so that means no more yokes, and it also means that all the draw lengths are available on a single cam. That makes life a lot easier if you're ever looking to sell the bow, because it opens up the options to a lot more customers, or it also helps if you're looking to buy a used bow down the line, because everyone you buy is going to be able to fit you. That's a great sign. Another new thing from Hoyt this year is this lower front stabilizer mount. This is one thing I am a big fan of, and I find this bow holds very well, even with just this little stab up front. It's really reminds me a little bit of how the newer Matthews bows have like the lower kind of front end sticking out. There's not a stabilizer mount there, but the same sort of geometry, I suppose, and it really does do wonders as far as holding this bow at full draw and having a steady feel without having a longer stabilizer. Another very interesting new feature this year is a Picatinny Sitemap. Basically, this allows you to move your sight from the side of the bow out to the front. I don't actually have a sight that can accommodate that just yet. I might get one of those in the future, and if I do, I will do a separate review on that system, but I can really see the value in it because now you're kind of moving all the weight off to the side, right up to the front of the riser, and you would think, stability-wise, that might make a difference. Now let's move on to the actual review, and I'm going to start with draw cycle. Just a little while ago, I posted a video kind of showing my favorite draw cycles of all the hunting bows I tested this year, and if you watched it, this one came out on top. I wouldn't say it was the lightest draw cycle. I would say, though, it was the smoothest. Really like a very linear pull, not much of a dump into the valley, which is right in my wheelhouse, and that's kind of why I gave this top marks in that category. When you come to the end of the draw cycle, everything comes to a halt thanks to these cable stops. Now this means you're not going to get like a rock hard wall like you would with a limb stop system. It does provide you just the littlest bit of give. I wouldn't call it kind of mushy in any way, and it's definitely stiffer than Hoyt's in prior years, but it's a pretty cool system. And another interesting feature is that you can switch it from 80 to 85% let off just by rotating this little module right there. It's a great system, and something I kind of appreciate that ability to do on other bows, and I'm glad Hoyt pulled it out this year, although for the most part I've been shooting it in the 85% let off, which it came with. I touched on stability a little earlier in the video when I mentioned the new lower stabilizer mount, and I think it's worth kind of bringing up again because this bow set up as is just a wildly stable shooting platform. I would have no desire to add on a longer 12 or 14 inch front stabilizer under this bow. And depending on what I'm doing, I might even take an ounce or two off of here if I really want to keep things lightweight for a long hike into the woods. As for what happens after the shot, the Carbon RX-5 Ultra stays pretty darn quiet and vibration free. In fact, I don't think I've ever shot a carbon bow that kind of had this little feedback in the hand, which is much appreciated. It's right in line with the top level bows, flagship bows in the industry as far as I'm concerned, as far as kind of quiet vibration free performance. Now I mentioned speed a little earlier in the video, and to test that out, I shot this bow through the chronograph with a 350 grain gold tip platinum pierce arrow, and I saw an average speed of 328 feet per second. That ended up being tied for first among all of the bows I tested this year, all of which had noticeably higher rated speeds than this one. And when I shot a heavier 477 grain arrow, which I'll hunt with this year, the gold tip airstrike, we saw speeds of 286 feet per second. Fit and finish on the RX-5 overall is quite good. No real complaints about anything. I am starting to see a couple of really small paint chips, which have no doubt were caused by me, banging this against other bows or whatnot. And they're very small, and I'm wondering if that's somewhat due to the texture that's kind of underneath the paint on this bow. And I'm guessing the texture was there for kind of added grip, or whatever it might be. But it does seem to be leading to very small kind of little rubbing marks where that paint might come off a little bit. But overall, I mean, fit and finish is typical Hoyt. It's a great looking bow with a great looking riser. Overall, the only real issue I would have with this bow is the price tag. This is easily the most expensive bow I've tested this year, and that is, that's going to be a real consideration for anybody shopping for a bow. However, if the price is a real problem for you and you're willing to forego the comfort and warmth of a carbon riser, you can always look at like the Hoyt Ventum 33. It's only 1/10 of a pound heavier than this bow, despite this one being made out of carbon. And it's got virtually the same specs. It's going to have the same cam system. It's going to have all the same features that you'd want in a bow, just in a more affordable package. You just have to give up the carbon riser. The bottom line, however, is if you were looking for a wildly stable, surprisingly fast hunting bow, the Hoyt Carbon RX-5 is well worth checking out. I'd advise you to head to your local Hoyt dealer and take one for a test drive.